We will just get started. So again, good morning and afternoon everyone, and welcome to this month's LeadHer Lounge. I'm so glad that you can join us for what I think is the most important conversation yet: community, connection, and well-being in agriculture. The LeadHer Lounge is our space for real fireside style conversations about the things that shape women's experience in agriculture, from invisible work to leadership, and now to mental health and community care. Today also feels especially fitting as we recently marked yesterday the International Day of Rural Women, a reminder of how essential women are in keeping rural communities, families, and farms strong. We're diving into how community-based support systems like Ag Talk, peer networks, and local health initiatives can make mental health and wellness more accessible and less stigmatized across the sector. Because as we all know, mental health isn't just about crisis lines and therapy sessions. It's about relationships, awareness, and the culture we build around care and connection in rural life. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to ground our conversation with a land acknowledgement. Canada is the home of more than 600 First Nations who have governed and managed these lands since the beginning of time. The Canadian Agriculture Human Resource Council gratefully acknowledges that we work throughout the lands of these First Nations and that our office is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. I invite everyone here to take a moment to reflect on the lands that you're joining from, and if you're comfortable, please share your own land acknowledgement in the chat. Thank you. So with that, I'm so pleased to welcome our incredible guests for today's LeadHer Lounge. I'm joined by these three amazing ladies. So we have Dr. Merle Massie, a farmer, author, speaker, and the executive director of the Do More Ag Foundation, which champions mental well-being in Canadian farming communities. Beyond her professional work, Merle builds one weird thing on her farm each year. In 2024, it was a stone walking labyrinth. In 2025, a wind phone, and we're all curious to know what's coming up for 2026. Yvonne Rempel is a rural animator in the Grand Cache, Alberta area. Yvonne works with communities to identify strengths and create sustainable solutions for mental health and well-being, reducing stigma and improving accessibility. She's passionate about empowering communities to take action and build strong local networks of care. And last but not least, Avery Dixon is the interim program outreach coordinator for the Guardian Network at Agriculture Wellness Ontario. Avery blends her psychology background and research on life stress and suicide risk with her roots in a multi-generational farm family. She's dedicated to fostering connection, advancing suicide prevention, and also promoting wellness in agricultural communities. So thank you all for being here. Let's start by getting to know each of you a little bit better. So to start, could each of you share a bit about the work your organization does and how it connects to supporting health and well-being in agricultural communities? Merle, if you want to go first.
Absolutely. So I am the executive director of the Do More Agriculture Foundation, started by farmers for farmers in 2017, first as a nonprofit. It was awarded its charitable status in 2019 and has been growing ever since. Do More's mission is to cultivate a culture of mental well-being with Canadian farming communities. So we really lean into that particular mission and mandate because what we know is that producers are never just a single person. Producers include everyone on that farm, everyone who works on that farm, everyone who connects on that farm, and everyone who surrounds that farm. And so thinking it through from that community perspective allows us to really lean into issues such as peer help and support. So a couple of our programs, Talk, Ask, Listen, where we go out to communities and we help them to host workshops around what it looks like at the community level to support one another. Our Ag Talk program, which is our online peer program, which we'll be focusing on a little bit more today, and various other programs. And one of the things that we know, and so I really love that today is around that culture of care and connection, because that's where Do More Ag knows that one of the reasons why people don't reach out for help is that they're so afraid of the shame and the fear that can still sometimes be attached. Even with our increased level of awareness, awareness isn't action. Awareness sounds great, but it's not action. And so how do we help communities to take action? How do we help individuals to take action for their own mental health? That's where we sit.
Great, thank you. Avery, did you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. So, as Rebecca said, my name is Avery, and I am part of Agricultural Wellness Ontario, which is a part of the Canadian Mental Health Association. And we are a suite of farmer-focused programs that are designed to support the mental well-being of the ag community. So, my role is Program Outreach Coordinator for the Guardian Network. And the Guardian Network is a full-day suicide prevention training for farmers in particular. So anyone can take the Guardian Network if they live in the agricultural industry, work in the industry, or supporting someone in the industry. We know from statistics that farmers have considerably high rates of stress, of mental illness, and of suicide. And like Merle said, these experiences are often masked or dismissed due to stigma and fear in the community. So the Guardian Network trains folks not only on how to identify the signs of distress in farmers particularly, but also how to respond to these signs in ways that are relevant to farmers, that is supportive of their lived experiences and encourages open conversations about mental health in the ag community. So we currently have over 400 trained guardians across the province of Ontario, which is amazing. Guardians are stewards of wellness and of hope in their communities, and they bridge people who are struggling to mental health supports that are specifically designed to consider the unique needs that farmers and ag workers face.
Wow, 400, that's amazing.
We're very
And
excited.
yeah. And Yvonne, did you want to share a little bit about your organization?
Absolutely. For us here in Alberta, I'm saying good morning. It's not lunchtime. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity with this amazing esteemed panel. As mentioned earlier, I'm Yvonne Rempel. I am a rural mental health community animator, and I'm actually situated in Fairview, not Grand Cache, used to be Grand Cache, as well as I am a community health promotion facilitator for cancer prevention screening and innovation. So with rural mental health, we are actually partially funded by the Canadian Mental Health Association. We are the unique project in Alberta, and we're called the Rural Mental Health Project, where we have trained over 150 community animators that I really like how you put it, Avery. We are also stewards of community wellness and well-being. We've just started our 25th cohort of animator training. We're so excited. This animator training, because of our funding, we can offer this animator training for free. It is 7 weeks, and there's 7 modules, and it's all virtual and online to complete. And we're so excited that this is continuing to move forward. I've been involved with rural mental health now for 6+ years as a community animator, as a community facilitator with this project, as well as from a local level. We really want to promote community well-being. We want to really enhance those spaces and places to promote community sense of belonging, that community connection, care, and create a culture of that mental well-being. And what that looks like is different in many rural communities. Our job is to facilitate, not do for, but do alongside, and empower our communities to build awareness, create those spaces and places. So we like to say we don't know what we know until we know what we know. And I'm that community connector or network in our region. We have a very large rural region here in Northwest Alberta. And when we work alongside women and families, we support the broader farming community, because right now a trend in Northern Alberta is creating those men's sheds. as an idea and as a project. So supporting what that looks like from men's mental health, as well as ongoing support for the women in agriculture.
Great, thank you. I think that gives us such a great foundation for today's conversation. When we think about mental health and agriculture, the focus often lands on the individual, what that person can or should do, but there's real power in reframing the conversation around community. Why is that shift important, especially in agriculture? Either three of you.
I think I'll jump in. I think it's community that has that broader support. In rural communities, you see the community gather not only in a crisis or tragedy situation, but we love to share our successes. And as a community, I think we can even do better in sharing those successes as a whole, as a broader. And it's easier if everybody kind of takes a little piece of the pie from a community perspective versus individual. And it's all about collaboration and building that capacity within our own communities.
Agreed.
I wholeheartedly agree. And if I could jump in, so one of the things that I've seen that happens, and I live in a rural community, so this is something that I see on a regular basis, is that yes, we're really good. We have lots of energy and strength to wrap ourselves around, a cancer diagnosis or a heart attack or a stroke or, that kind of thing. And, the casseroles, show up and we, drive them to supports and all those sorts of things. And so we know that energy and community support is there. But when we leave mental health to the individual level, what we hear is that people say, "Oh, they need space," and I'm pushing my arm out on purpose because that's both what the person feels and that's what the community is doing. They need space, right? And so what it does is that the culture tells us, right? Our actions speak louder than words. Our culture tells us that certain kinds of health crises deserve and everyone crawls all over each other to help and support, and other kinds of health crises we pull back. And what we do when we leave it at that individual level is like, oh, you need to call the call line, you need to go to therapy, you need to fix yourself. When you're better, then we'll welcome you back in, right? And so shifting the focus that little bit and shining a light for communities to see and self-understand that difference and think, okay, we do have lots of community energy and support. We have this increased awareness. People know that mental health and physical health are exactly the same and should be treated the same. How do we activate our community to actually walk the walk and make those changes?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's an amazing way of putting that, Merle. I love that. I think one thing that we can acknowledge is that we know from research that one of, if not the most important protective factor against mental illness and suicide is strong social support. And so exactly like you've said, farmers and ag communities have tremendous skills in building social connection and in fostering communities. So I think reframing the conversation about mental health to be focused on community is imperative. Not only because we know that it will yield positive results from the statistics, but also because it's capitalizing on a protective factor that we already have present in the agricultural world. We just need to uplift it and encourage it. So, I mean, from the mental health perspective, we do spend time talking about risk factors that are relevant to farmers' mental health, and that's important context to have to inform our intervention approaches. But I think it's equally important to acknowledge that farmers are already implementing their strongest protective factor in their day-to-day lives, and that's that social connection. So encouraging them to do that and to have conversations around mental health in their community spaces is one of the strongest things we can do to support well-being in our farmers and our ag communities.
Correct. And I agree so much. It's definitely powerful to have community around you. So shifting over to Do More Egg Foundation, Merle, Egg Talk has really become a space where farmers can connect with each other about the tough stuff, things they might not talk about everywhere else. Why do you think peer-to-peer connection is so powerful, especially in rural and agricultural contexts?
This is such a great question. Thank you. Couple of things. So it builds on exactly the conversation that we just had about having that supportive community. As Avery said, the research is very clear. People who feel like they have a supportive group around them, who will wrap themselves around them and help and support them on their journey if they have if they're experiencing some adversity, that matters, right? If you've got people around you that you can trust, that you can share with, that matters. The issue is in so many rural communities, or whether it's true or not, people feel that it's true, right? They feel like their community will treat them differently. And so that's one of the reasons why we created Ag Talk, because we know the power of community is so important. And so the Do More Agriculture Foundation works with a group called Together All. And Together All is an online peer-to-peer support space. So this is a space where people can log in. You have to register, obviously. And then everybody on there is anonymous. Everyone gets their own anonymous name. And that's important because for a lot of people, it's so deeply ingrained culturally in so many people that mental health is not something to talk about, or that this is somehow shameful, or they're just scared. Having them have an outlet such as this that's anonymous, that connects with peers from across Canada and around the world really, really helps. The other piece with Together All is that, and I really want to focus on this, that peer-to-peer piece really matters because you're learning from your peers, you're seeing that they have similar problems and challenges to what you have, and you feel less alone. And that's so critical. It also allows you space to share what you've learned, what people know about, that you can share what's worked with you, right? And so sometimes that sharing piece really becomes a powerful piece as well. One of the other things about Together All, two other pieces about Together All, is that it isn't just farmers on the platform. I talk about Ag Talk as sort of farmer coffee row. It's the farmer corner within the larger Together All site. So when people come in through the Do More Ag site, and I put the link in the chat, so if you're looking, it's there. So I put the link, it explains a little bit more about it, and it links you straight to Together All where people can register. And then Together All will know that you came in through the Do More Agriculture Ag Talk portal. And so they can kind of help to tailor your experience to make sure that you always know how to get to the Ag Talk corner if that's all you want is just to talk to other farmers. But farmers are never just farmers, right? We're also coaches. We're also, potentially in a marriage that's maybe, experiencing trouble. Maybe we've got other relationships in our life that we need a little bit of help and support with. Maybe we're a first responder, or something like that. There are other groups within Together All, and you might find that you've got connections and things to say within some of those other hats as well, and that may help you. And so having an online space that's only for farmers can also become a little bit of an echo chamber, right? And so having other options within Together All provides a healthier, more realistic experience, right? Because yes, we're farmers, but we're never just farmers. We're also all these other things. The other and the final piece is that Together All is clinically moderated 24/7. There are always wall guides there, and these are people who understand mental health, and you can have that one-on-one conversation with you. They also have the ability to intervene, and so they'll reach out to you and check in with you. When you register, you do have to provide. You're anonymous when you're on the site, but you do have to provide some of your own personal information. And we have had incidences of people who have been part of Ag Talk who the wall guides have identified and said they need a little bit of extra support. And so there have been higher levels of intervention. There are lots of stats around Ag Talk, and we are absolutely meeting the need. We're so pleased to bring it to the Canadian agriculture community. And when I say agriculture community, it isn't just producers and farmers. Anyone connected to agriculture, women connected to agriculture, women agronomists, women scientists, women farmers, anything that we are, anything that we bring to the table, and our connection to agriculture, everyone across agriculture is welcome.
I love that. And I also love the fact that you're using technology to create a community. And sometimes people get stuck in their bubble, or maybe there isn't a lot of community around them directly physically. So being able to use technology is a great
or they
tool.
don't trust their community, or
Exactly.
they're really concerned about that sense of anonymity.
Very true. And that's sometimes what we need most is someone who just gets it. You've also talked about how women in agriculture show up differently in those conversations. What have you seen or learned about that specifically?
More than 50% of the users of Ag Talk are women, which is not unusual. When Do More Ag puts on some kind of a workshop in community or a webinar online, even if it's a webinar tailored for men, we do see a high proportion of women, and oftentimes at the community level, more than 50% of the people who show up are women. And so what I know is that women tend to carry a very heavy burden for caregiving, particularly at the farm level. And we've even had, so Do More Ag has often received a lot of texts or notes from the men who also listen to us. And the first thing that they say is, "You've given me the courage to go home and talk to my wife." That's always their first step, is to go and talk to their spouse, their partner, their significant other about what's going on with them. And then together going ahead and getting help and support. And so we know that women do carry a heavier load when it comes to what some people are now calling the chief relationship officer at the farm level. And so, right, whether it's human resources, whether it's just making sure that the three brothers-in-law aren't fighting too much. Like my role sometimes, just I make sure they're fed really well, because hangry men don't do well. So I lean on my own skills, in our own work. And there are other things that women, and these are harder and tougher. And when we shape spaces for women in agriculture to talk to each other, we tend to talk about the positive stuff. Yay, women in agriculture. The realities are we have higher levels of domestic violence in rural communities. This is a fact, and we need to make sure that we're paying attention to that. We've got intergenerational trauma. We've got culture that places women in a different role in many cases. There's higher levels of drug and alcohol abuse in rural spaces. We know this as well. And so there's all the good things, and there's the reality, and we need to make sure we're incorporating all of it.
Exactly. Yes. And those are definitely things that we have to keep in mind as well. So for those listening today, as the attendees that we have here, who or what might they do to get involved? What's one small way that they can start building a more supportive community maybe around them, or how can they get themselves involved?
Oh, well, everyone's welcome to join Ag Talk. So if you're connected with agriculture at all, please, go ahead, check it out, see what you think. Another thing, so that community animator piece that Yvonne talked about, so that's who we're looking for. Community champions come to Do More Agriculture Foundation and apply for funding to host a workshop right in your community. And we have a list of 4 workshops that you guys, that people can apply for. So that's another way to get involved. If you would like to change the culture in your community, at your community level, we can help and support that, and we're happy to do so. We also have an ambassador program that we're going to be relaunching this winter, and that's something else that we welcome. We had a call this year for more facilitators. So if there are people who have a bit of a stronger facilitation and mental health background, and you'd like to facilitate our Talk, Ask, Listen events at the community level, we've been doing some work to train some additional facilitators for that as well. So there are lots and lots of ways, but there are some easy ways too. Follow, right? So make sure you follow on social media. You can hear about all the different things that are going on. We don't just share what Do More Ag is doing. We share our partner groups, anything that we know. And finally, we have started a community of practice this year as well. So if you are a person who works at that connector piece between agriculture and mental health, or rural agriculture and mental health, you can send me a note and join our community of practice.
Great. Perfect. Thank you. So shifting over to Yvonne, you've worked in communities across Northern Alberta to make healthy choices easier and more supported. What does that actually look like in practice? And what might agricultural or rural communities learn from that approach?
Great question. As I was sitting here listening to Merle, I am awe-inspired, and we will connect. There is some opportunities as an animator or as a community facilitator. Part of my role, when I mentioned earlier as a community net connector networker, online resources are hardly overwhelming. Part of my role, I guess, informally, is navigating through all those resources, because individuals often come to me going, I don't know where to start. I'm not an expert, but I link or I connect with individuals like Merle or other agencies and organizations, and we kind of pick our top 3 or top 5 sites so they have a starting point. We really do provide follow-up as well. We're not, at the end of the day, we're very adamant. We're not counselors. Our job is to promote and educate the community on what is available locally, what's available regionally, what are the best tools that we can suggest to connect online. And what's really important for me as an animator is to follow up with those individuals who have reached out to me, or we have built those relationships. And maybe I should go back and say building relationships in community is one of the key pieces in that collaboration, because community only moves at the speed of trust. So when you're working with mental health or mental well-being, we also look at defining and understanding mental health versus mental well-being, because everybody tends to put mental health all in one basket. We could have a really great mental health day or a really bad mental health day. But when we look at mental health or mental well-being from a community level and really supporting those two identities, as an animator, and really supporting our community. So when we're building those relationships, we're building that trust. So community members or agricultural families, whether it's the women or the farmer themselves, connecting with us and saying, can you help us look for? And that's what I love doing, is building those connections and then following up to say, how did it go? Is there anything else I can help with? Making some of those referrals if necessary. That's what we do at the community level. We're not doing for, but we're hopefully empowering our rural community members to find the resources that work best for them. Hope that
I
answered your
find
question.
Oh, for sure it did. I find too, I'm often asked that question too. It's like, where are the resources? What do we do? Or they often feel like there are no resources because their first search or that one website they went to didn't have the answer. So having someone like yourself in their community where they can reach out to, or even other organizations that can collaborate with you on making that change possible is extremely important. So I'm curious, is there or are there any lessons from your work that apply to how we think about physical health and mental well-being together rather than separately?
The short answer is yes.
Always a short answer.
Right? And again, it's easy to look at the individual, but with our scope of work, we look at the community piece, right? So that physical piece, working alongside communities to create opportunities to move more, sit less, or just get out and be more active, and include those mental well-being messages. I'll share the link there's a community in central Alberta. It's called Millet. Um, they worked in collaboration with their schools, and for Mental Health Week last year, I believe, the schools created signs, and they put 11 by 17, they printed them and laminated them and put them on stakes and put them all around the walking trails for a week. So people walking about just had these beautiful, neat little messages from Smile More, you got this. Oh, they were just, it was so interesting to see the kids create these community messages, something that simple had such impact in a community, right? So often it's the little things that have bigger impact. Another community did a glow walk in late fall, early winter as some to get to build community connection, and it's still going 10 years later. And it was just one of those events that it was a really easy idea, easy to implement in rural communities, and it was just that community sense of belonging and feeling that they had a connection. So it doesn't have to be something big, just something small can have major impact.
Yeah, I love that too. Okay, switching over to Avery. Um, Agriculture Wellness Ontario and the Guardian Network have done such meaningful work training people to recognize signs of stress and connect others to help. As you had said, 400 Guardians trained. I think that's phenomenal. How do you see networks like that helping to change the story about asking for help in agriculture?
Yeah, this is such an important question. So the Guardian Network is actually based off of Quebec Association of Suicide Prevention's Sentinel program. And the idea with these programs is that you don't just give a small isolated group of people who are already trained in mental health a training on suicide prevention and then say, okay, see ya. That's not what we're doing. Rather, we are co-constructing our intervention approach with the ag community. So what that means is we are training people who directly live and work in the agricultural community to notice and respond to signs of distress in farmers. The research shows that farmers are 2 times more likely than the general non-farming population to experience suicidal ideation. And the unfortunate reality is that it's really tough to get farmers to openly express that they are needing support. And then even when we do get farmers to express that, usually they don't know where to go. They don't know who to say that to. They don't know who to ask for help. What we do know is that farmers are much more likely to talk about their experiences with someone who they think can understand their unique struggles, and that's usually other farmers, that's usually people who live and work in the ag industry. So why this approach is so useful is because we are embedding a network of mental health advocates across the sector. So guardians are people who have frequent and close contact with farmers, and that makes them more likely to notice when someone in their community is feeling off, not themselves, and then capable of starting a conversation. Having someone who is a part of your community support you instead of someone who you feel like is infiltrating your community is so impactful for farmers, especially. Farmers are inherently private. They inherently, the truth is, lack trust in other services. So using farmers to support other farmers is so valuable. And I'm thinking about what Yvonne said about community only moves at the speed of trust. So we know farmers trust each other. We've seen it. We have the stats to show it. So capitalizing on that is something that we really think about at the Guardian Network. And with that, Guardians are, reshaping the way that farmers are viewing asking for help with their mental health. So having trained Guardians in our communities not only reduces some of the barriers of access to care that farmers face, such as not knowing where to go or worried about dealing with professionals who don't understand their unique experiences, but it's also inherently reducing stigma in the community since it's the agriculture community members themselves that are leading and pioneering the conversations.
I think that's such an important message, especially for women in leadership roles or on family farms, where there's often, that pressure to hold everything together. Merle kind of pinpointed that a little bit. What do you think stops people, particularly women, from reaching out when they need help?
Yeah, so I mean, for the truth is, for as long as there have been farms, there have been strong women behind those farms. Women farmers have always existed. It's just that our socially acceptable roles, quote unquote, have changed over time. And so I think in today's day, we're seeing more and more women who have public facing roles on the farm. Maybe they take on more physical labor, women who manage finances and families and business decisions all at the same time. Like Merle said about women being chief relationship officer, women are taking on so many roles on and off the farm. And I think that there is still to this day a historical perception that farming is, quote, a man's job, and that women aren't physically or mentally strong enough to manage farms, even though women are spectacular at managing their farms. And I think there is a heightened fear or judgment because of this historical perception that women are going to be judged or ridiculed for coming forward and saying, I am struggling. I think women fear that it will brand them a failure in the industry, or that people will say, well, this is because you're a woman that you are struggling with this. We just know that's not the case, that regardless of your gender, your social location, farming is inherently a hard profession and a hard way of life. There are just aspects to agricultural livelihoods that are unpredictable and stressful. Just like there are many things that we love about agriculture, there is stuff that makes it really hard to navigate. So it is okay and very normal to, need some extra support. And I just want to clarify, like, it doesn't mean that you are less worthy of leading a farm. It doesn't make you less of a woman to need that extra support. And it doesn't reflect your capabilities as a farmer or as a community member. So at AgWo and at Guardian Network, we're kind of reframing this idea of asking for help is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. And it takes a while to understand that and to get communities to really, internalize that belief. But that's what we're working towards. And for women especially, strong women sometimes have to ask for help, and that is totally okay. And we're trying to normalize that in our communities.
Exactly. I'm extremely introverted, so having to ask for help for anything, I feel like you have to put like your superhero cape on. So I like that you're switching that way that we perceive it. And finally, how can we make it easier for people to see themselves as part of the solution and not just the audience when it comes to the mental well-being of others
Yeah,
or
for
themselves?
sure. Yeah, so I mean, the Guardian Network is really focused on these ideas of mental health stewardship and continuing education. It's totally okay. This happens. It's totally all right if someone takes our training, they put the knowledge in their mental toolbox, and they don't access it often, or they don't continue to expand on it. All knowledge has value, especially for these topics, so that's all right. But what we really encourage is for people to engage in the training in an ongoing way. And so what that looks like is we host monthly virtual connects where Guardians can join us via Zoom, and we hold space for them to debrief about anything that they feel would be helpful in them as they navigate their role as a Guardian. And then we facilitate short seminars on a topic of the month. So the goal for our connects is to help us establish rapport with our Guardians, and for Guardians to keep getting support that they might need. And for Guardians to continue their learning so that they continue to feel confident in having conversations about mental health with farmers and people in their community. Because it's a skill, it's a muscle, and like anything else, you need to flex that muscle sometimes. So it's important to keep those skills, fresh and up to date. And with that in mind, we also have annual symposiums and events where our team can meet the Guardians face to face, and we provide continued learning and a space for connection for them to feel like they are in fact part of a network. Hence the name Guardian Network. We want the Guardians to feel like they are in fact, connected and working together. So there's lots of opportunities for Guardians to feel that way. And we also provide the Farmer Wellness Initiative, which is AgWo's free unlimited counseling and crisis line, 24/7 availability to our Guardians in particular. I want to say that, like, at the end of the day, gaining knowledge and then using that knowledge to support your community, whether that is by directly helping someone who is in distress, or if you are advocating for stronger mental health for the ag sector, you are an active agent in creating a healthier agriculture community. So being part of the solution can simply look like changing the way that you think about your own well-being. You can think of that ground-up approach. If we are every day getting up with the idea of, I want to manage my own well-being, I want to have strong social support, I want to have strong mental health, that is a way of changing the narrative and of being part of the solution. We encourage people to reserve their judgment of others. There's an activity in the Guardian Network training where we talk about those biases and beliefs we might hold to other people who are struggling, and dismantling those is a great way for you to do some internal reflection and work on being the solution in your community. And just strengthening your own values, and then, being brave to share those values with your community, I think is a great stepping stone into creating, more mentally well and healthy communities, especially for ag where we are facing stigma. I think that's an awesome place to start.
Yeah, I'll definitely echo the whole upskilling side of it, that it's continuous growth and it's continuous learning, and it's vital to, like you said, crushing that stigma and all of that that comes with mental health. So we've covered so many different perspectives today, from peer support to prevention, to building networks of care. If you could leave listeners with one idea about how we can strengthen mental health in our agricultural communities, what would it be? I'll leave that up to either. You're all I'm not. Go ahead.
I think that the one piece is that people don't know where to go, right? People don't know what their path is. And the path is different depending on where you live, right? Because health is provincial, right? And so the path is different depending on where you live. I think that one of the strongest things that a community member can do is to get a group of people that you know who also kind of, have touch points around mental health in your community and map out what it looks like in your community and who's available, what those, basically do it from that strength base. What are our assets? Do we have, okay, we're a community of 250 people, but maybe we happen to have a therapist who lives in town, or, somebody who's a retired psych nurse and, can maybe help navigate. What is our local call line for our health region, right? To access mental health support. Can we organize and get a psychiatrist to come in, to our local hospital once a month? Like, what are our existing assets? Because if you map them out, then you can kind of see where some of your gaps are. And then you can share that, here's the path. Because doing that when you're well is so important. And having that on hand, if you are having that conversation with a friend who lives locally, who needs help and support, you're like, look at what we've created. And you can share it. You can post it on bulletin boards. You can share it on social media. You can map out what it looks like from your local space, from your local geography to access mental health help.
Exactly. Create a toolkit for your community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, echoing Merle, that's an awesome way of putting that, and I couldn't agree more. I think fundamentally at the core of that message is this understanding that you aren't alone. I think that's something that I find comes up a lot in Guardian Network trainings and in other roles that I've had when you say things like, someone going through this would, like, I've spoken to people who also went through a similar experience and they told me that they were feeling this way too. Like, does that resonate with you? And often I find people are like, really? Like, I thought it was just me, or I was feeling weak. I was feeling alone because I thought I was the only person who felt this way. And so, exactly like what Merle is saying is those conversations create this idea of like, it's not just me. So there's not something wrong with me for feeling this way. This is a stressful event and I'm going to face this head on. And if we have the supports, to do that, like Merle is saying, then that is such a valuable tool. But I think coming up with this idea that you are not alone and that it is not, foreign to feel that way and it's totally okay and we're just going to get the support that we need is really valuable.
Exactly. I know. Remember when I had little babies and toddlers, I'd go to the mommy and me play groups and realizing that I wasn't going crazy. So being able to see that kind of in an agricultural light too is so important. Like you said, just identifying that I'm not the only person that's ever done this in the history of world does kind of make that problem feel a little bit smaller. Yvonne, did you want to add?
Just to add a little bit to that from what Merle commented on is, as communities, we often get not involved, but we often rely on or identify what are the gaps and what are the needs in community, and we get frustrated of not knowing where to look and not knowing what to do because we don't have a mental health therapist. In rural Alberta, formal mental health support is very limited, and we all can't just travel to communities where there is that formal health service available. So I really love, and where I come from is changing the mindset of working alongside rural communities, and specifically with agricultural families, is what is there? What can we do together versus what we can't do? Again, looking at what are our local assets, what are our skills and local knowledge, making those community connections. You know, you've known Bob for 35 years, but do you know that him and his family have struggled with mental health? No, you didn't. Is building those community connections is where I see success happen. And again, it comes with building that community trust and that community collaboration.
Exactly. And I can just speak from personal experience. I was a community champion for Do More Egg Foundation's Community Fund. And having that in my community, it was a 2-day mental health first aid course that we had at the time. This is talking a few years back. But just being able to sit in a room with like-minded individuals and not all of them are farmers. Some of them were just, they were supporting the farming community as well. And so being able to come together and say, you know, we need to create community and keep this going. And there was such a practical aspect of that, that we were going to do potlucks and get people off the farm, which was such a great, I think, pathway forward. So being able to have some of that funding and create that was huge for my community. So we are at the end of almost at the end of our hour. I do want to turn it over to the audience. If you had any questions for our guest speakers today, you can put them in the chat or you can put them in the Q&A. We would love to hear from you if there's something that maybe we didn't talk about or didn't think about. That would be great for connecting your community together, or if just questions in particular. Love to connect and see if there's any questions. There was a little bit of sounding off in the chat as we were speaking to. There's some links as well there. If you wanted to look into Ag Talk or any of the other resources that these ladies bring. I know we know that there's much more out there. So if you wanted to add some more links into the chat as well for your community or for your province, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Yeah, there's Do More Ag in there. There's the Guardian Network, and then the ruralmentalhealth.ca is there too.
Rebecca, can I tell everybody who's here about the podcast that's going to launch next week?
Sure, of course. Go ahead.
So the Do More Ag Foundation has a new podcast that will be coming out next week, will be launched next week. If you're really good at the internet, you'll actually find it now because we're in the soft launch phase. It's called Hey, Are We Okay? And what I do is I talk to communities who are shaping space at their community level, making some changes, making some waves, doing events to raise the conversation in their community around mental health. So, for example, I've spoken with Sherry Garner, who has a one person, one act play musical theater event, and the community of Embro, Ontario wrapped a whole weekend around her musical theater event, and there were all kinds of things happening across the community across that weekend. So that's one episode. There's an upcoming episode on men's sheds. Yvonne, you talked about men's sheds, so we're going to have an episode around men's sheds. So that's another example of things that communities can do to break open that space and host that conversation in different ways around mental health. Yes, and the podcast is available now, and we'll launch it next week. It's called Hey, Are We Okay? And it is the first 3 episodes are available.
One of the
and
questions
it's on all of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I was going to say, I was like,
will the podcast be available on Spotify? Yeah, it's available. Yeah, we put it on Libsyn, which means it doesn't matter where you get your podcasts. It's everywhere.
Wonderful. We'll definitely be checking that out. I'm a podcast junkie, I think, at this point.
Well, I'm learning lots about podcasts. It will get better as we go along.
Of course. I mean, this is only the 3rd one of the LeadHer Lounge, so I'm happy that everybody is so patient with me. Is there any questions or anything else, Avery or Yvonne, that you would like to add? Anything coming down the line or some training or anything that you'd like to share with the audience as well?
Yeah, I posted in the chat, but that's the link to the Guardian Network website, and we do host monthly virtual trainings. So if you are based in Ontario and you are interested in anything that we talked about today, first of all, you can absolutely contact me. I'll paste my email in the chat, and we can talk about whether it's right for you. But we do host monthly trainings virtually. So we actually have our next one coming up next week on the 22nd, but definitely reach out if you have any questions. The other thing I'll mention is that AgWo does come out to events. So again, if you're based in Ontario, we love to send one of our team members out to events. We'll send packages of resources. We have really cool stickers. That's one thing that we always get lots of positive feedback about. But we love to come out to events and talk to the ag community, get to know people, and spread the word a little bit. So definitely something to keep in mind if you're based in Ontario and you're interested in what we talked about today.
Great, thank you. So it doesn't look like we have any questions, but I mean, we talked about a lot of things and some things can be fairly loaded. So happy as well to get anybody in contact with any of the resources as well as they come about. And Avery has her email there too, if you're based in Ontario and would like to join, and always can reach out to Do More Ag Foundation, and they're a great resource across the nation. But I want to thank all of you so much, Merle, Yvonne, and Avery, for sharing your insights and everything that's going on with your organization. And a thank you to everybody that joined us today for the LeadHer Lounge. These conversations are about building community, and every time you show up, you're part of that change. If today's conversation inspired you, I encourage you to check out the organizations, again, represented here, and to keep talking, keep connecting, and keep caring for each other. Also wanted to say too that these LeadHer Lounge sessions will be held every third Thursday. Next month, we are going to be diving into women's personal protective equipment and workwear. So we'll have a few speakers on that. But if there's no other questions, I will say thank you all again for joining us today, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.